Hello to my kings, queens, and in-betweens. I'm Valerie, and welcome to my channel, The Bookish Valkyrie. So today's video is a major unhaul, and I am going to be putting all of the books that I unhaul today on my Pango shop. I know that in previous videos last year, I did some fundraising videos where I was doing the trans rights readathon, and I did pages for Palestine, and I wanted to continue contributing to the world at large. And I at one point got really overwhelmed because there are so many places and so many people who are in need. So I ended up looking into different organizations, and I got a little overwhelmed for a while there, but I did end up settling on the World Central Kitchen. And what they do is they provide fresh meals to people in humanitarian and climate and community crisis. So they are out there providing meals for people who are dealing with the LA wildfires. They are out there providing meals to people in Gaza. They are responding to hunger in areas that are being impacted by climate change and climate crisis. So they are helping people all over the world eat. They're helping to feed the world, essentially. And that just really spoke to me. So what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the proceeds that I make from my sales on Pango books and donating them to the World Central Kitchen. I have already made a donation of about $70 because last year, in the second half of the year, when I first started, when I first decided that I wanted to donate my Pango proceeds, I just kept track of everything that I earned, and I had made about like $69 and some change last year on the back half of the year. And so I decided that is since that is what I want to do, I went ahead and made that $70 donation. And now I am adding some new books to my Pango shelves so that I can hopefully get some more traffic on my Pango store and get some more funds to donate to the World Central Kitchen. So I also decided that on top of that, I would do myself some good and get rid of the books that I haven't known what to do with. So I have a bookshelf in my house that I call the timeout shelf, and that is where I put all of the books from authors who are behaving badly or authors who have upset me in some way, and I'll get more into the nitty gritty of that. And I didn't know what to, but I wasn't ready to let them go. I wasn't ready to let these books go. I didn't want to contribute to these authors anymore, but I already had all of these books, and a lot of them were really just like favorites. And so I didn't know what to do. So what I ended up doing is I just dubbed a shelf the timeout shelf, and I put all of the books there, and they've been there for years, some of them. So some of the books that are on my timeout shelf are old and in serious disrepair, and so I'm either going to, but they still hold sentimental value to me because of who gave them to me, or when I read them, at what point in my life I read them, and who I read them with. So the books that are in really terrible condition and I don't think are really worth selling, I'm going to just stick in a box and stick it in my storage under the stairs and just kind of forget about it until I don't know, think of a way to upcycle them or something. But I do have other books that are in good repair, and so I'm going to go ahead and add them to my Pango. So some of the books that I'm unhauling right now are authors behaving badly, timeout shelf books, and some of them are duplicates or books that I just kind of felt were kind of meh, and I just, for whatever reason, don't want them on my shelf anymore. but somebody else might really enjoy them. So we're going to start with the books from the authors behaving badly. Now, these authors, I'm not going to buy from again. They don't need my money ever again. But, you know, the stuff that I already own from them can do some good in the world. And so we're going to go ahead and donate those. And hopefully if somebody who still wants to read from these authors, or who just really want these books, or these books are important to them, can buy the books from me instead of sending more money to these authors, and I will move that money on to a good cause. We have 3 books from Freydis Moon. If you don't know why Freydis Moon is an author behaving badly, the list is long, but to sum it up really quickly for the purpose of this video, basically Freydis Moon has a history of being a massive bully. They have a history of race baiting. They posed as a Latina author when really they are a white person, and they have zero apologies to give for their bad behavior, and they've got a history of writing under other names, and they actually recently announced that they're publishing a new book. Don't give Freydis Moon your money, but if you really want to read some books that it breaks my heart are written by Freydis Moon, of really good books that I really wish had been written by a moral person, then instead of giving Freydis Moon your money, you should go to my Pango and pick up Heart Haunt Havoc, Wolf Willow Witch, or Saint Sorrow Sinner. And this is a trilogy following 3 different couples. They are some really great trans horror that unfortunately were written by a really terrible person. So if you have interest in reading these books but don't want to give Freydis Moon your money, my Pango store is an option for you. Now, this next batch of books also breaks my heart and fills me with rage, and that is Neil Gaiman. If somehow you don't know what Neil Gaiman has done, essentially he is a serial assaulter who has had several women come forward independently to report his horrifying behavior. So I can't bring myself to ever read any of his books ever again, and I have some real favorites in here, ones that some of these hold like a piece of my soul, and it breaks my heart that I have to let them go, because I can't even look at them anymore. They've been on my timeout shelf since the first woman stepped forward last year, and it's just gotten worse and worse as more women have come forward and more details have come forward and more articles have been written. So I'm done holding space in my house for these books and this author. But if you know somebody, or if you are somebody who still wants to read these books because they're good books, written by a terrible person, but good books, instead of giving Neil Gaiman your money, spend it on my Pango store and I will donate it to the World Central Kitchen. So I have Neverwhere. This is a book about people who live in the between places in London, and there are social, political shenanigans, and I really enjoyed this book. Now, this is one of the ones that breaks my heart the most. Coraline is a wonderful, dark children's story about a girl who is having some communication problems and some moving pains associated with growing up and with her parents having jobs that don't leave them available to give her the attention she deserves. And so she finds her way through a strange door with a strange key to another reality, an alternate version of her home with alternate versions of her parents and friends. And at first, things seem really fun and like everything that she's been looking for, but then they take a sinister turn. And then it's up to her to save herself and her family and some little ghost kids. Then we have The Graveyard Book, and this is a book that asks the question, what would happen if a little boy was raised by a bunch of undead people and, ghosts and vampires and whatnot. This is a fun middle grade story. I enjoyed it when I read it. It wasn't my favorite, but a lot of people really loved it. It's a Newbery Award-winning book. So, again, don't give him your money. Let me donate it instead. And then we have American Gods. And I have to say, actually, in the sequel to this, I did come across some stuff that made me uncomfortable, which is why I don't own a physical copy of it. And that kind of hinted at who Neil Gaiman really is on the inside. Like he let that slip. Basically, there was a magically roofied scene, and it was never addressed. It was never presented as a problem, and that I had a problem with. And I actually have that on my Goodreads review, questioning why nobody has questioned that. And honestly, it was the only red flag that I ever had before, like from reading his books. But now I can't stop thinking about it. Back to this book, American Gods. There was an AMC series that was based on this, and it's basically bringing a lot of questions about reality and what makes something real, and it's bringing in a lot of gods from a lot of different pantheons and different religions and different standpoints into the world and making them real. and it was a really interesting read that I enjoyed a lot. And again, I am so sad that I have to let this one go. The final one is another heartbreak for me, which is Stardust. This is a whimsical story, which actually has the distinction of me enjoying the movie more than the book, if I'm perfectly honest, because the book is a bit drier than the movie, and that's a personal taste thing. There are a lot of people who would strongly disagree with me about the book versus movie conversation on this book. However, it is still a whimsical fairy tale that flirts with crossing the line between reality and fantasy. And I had a great time reading this, and again, give me the money that you would give him for this book, and I'll donate it. All right, so that is it for the books that were on the timeout shelf because the authors behaved badly. This next author has been on my timeout shelf for a very long time. She did have an author's behaving badly moment that she walked back, and honestly, I still side-eye her for that, but it wasn't like the most horrendous thing I've ever seen. She wasn't being racist. She was being a stupid rich person with no real perspective, which isn't great. But again, she's got nothing on Freydis Moon or Neil Gaiman so far as bad behavior. And that is Laurell K. Hamilton. I read her Anita Blake Vampire Hunter books at a very young age. I want to say early 20s or late teens is when I first picked these up back in the very early aughts. I loved these books, and the reason that she made it onto my timeout shelf so long ago is because this series that started out so strong and so well just strayed into territory that I just wasn't interested in, and as it progressed, it got worse and worse, and then she would write something that would be a little bit hopeful, a little bit more like what these first original books were. And I would get my hopes up, and then the next book she would dash them. And so I've just had this toxic, horrible relationship with her series where I've got to the point where when I read these books, I am hate reading. And I don't have time or energy for that anymore. So not only am I not going to continue reading the series, and not only did I stop buying the books after Crimson Death, they have been on the timeout shelf because I just didn't know what to do anymore. Because this book broke me. What I've decided is I'm going to keep this original box set for my memories and because I do genuinely like these books. And I'm also going to keep her Mary Gentry books, which I have a very, shall we say, eclectic collection of right now. I'll probably work on getting them all into one matching set and then calling that good, because the Mary Gentry series shows how she can write these kinds of stories and end them. I think, honestly, the biggest problem with the Anita Blake books is that Laurell K. Hamilton just doesn't know how to end them, or she doesn't want to, or the people around her don't want her to, because they are a money grab. Now, if you are a trashy book reader, and I'm not judging you for it if you are, I'm a trashy book reader. But if you're a trashy book reader, you might still be enjoying the Anita Blake series, and honestly, more power to you. There's a part of me who wishes that I still could enjoy these books, but I just can't. So I'm going to move these on to somebody who can enjoy them. So I have Blue Moon, Burnt Offerings, Bloody Bones, Obsidian Butterfly, Narcissus in Chains, Cerulean Sins, Incubus Dreams, Micah, Dance Macabre, The Harlequin, Skin Trade, Bullet, Blood Noir, which doesn't have a cover, and of course the one that broke me, Crimson Death. I didn't write a rant review about this, but this is where I stopped buying her books physically. The final straw for me was Sucker Punch, and I did write a rant review about that. I'll link it below if you're interested in reading it. But yeah, these books are ready and available for anybody who wants to give them a good home. Anybody who is still enjoying these books, because there are a lot of people out there who still love and enjoy these books. So if you're one of them, please feel free to help yourself to all of the books that I have from her. Now, these next two books are ones that I just don't need on my shelf. I bought them because the covers are really cute, and like so cute. And I was certain that these were going to be stories I was going to just love and adore. But this one, A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, was okay. It was a 3-star read for me. And while the opening scene is so good, the exploding chicken just tickled me pink. And so I'm not going to stop reading the series, but I don't need them on my shelf. And when I picked this up, I had already picked this one up as well. This is the second book, A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. And I just don't see any world in which I'm going to want this book on my shelf, even after I do read it. Like I said, I do plan on reading the rest of this series. I just don't need them on my shelf. So on to Pango they go. Now these next books are all going on because they are duplicate copies, and they are absolutely beloved favorites of mine that I really hope to move on to somebody who will also find the joy that I have found in these books. Now, the first 3 are the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark trilogy. They are books that I grew up reading and torturing my younger siblings with, and all of the kids at my daycare. I had these stories memorized, and I loved telling them to anybody who would listen because I was that kid. I loved these books, and I have had this set of books on my shelf for years, and then I came across a set with the original covers and had to have them. So those are on my shelf now, and these lovely, lovely books need a new home. And then I have A Blade So Black and A Dream So Dark. These are part of an amazing trilogy that I loved and was so happy to have been able to get. So originally I had this paperback copy of A Blade So Black, and I went looking for the rest of the series in paperback and I couldn't find it. So I ended up picking them up in hardcover. So that's why this one is a duplicate. And so far as this one is concerned, I am just a dum-dum, and I bought this thinking that I was buying the third book in the trilogy, and instead I was buying this book a second time. So this was just straight up an oopsie on my part. Fortunately, though, I can turn that oopsie into a donation. So those are all of the books that I am going to be adding to my Pango in the next day or two, and they will be up on my Pango store by the time this video is up. I have my Pango store linked below. I also will have the World Central Kitchen linked in the description as well, in case you want to just make donations directly to them, or if you want to check them out and see if you want to have your money go to them, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't, but everybody is entitled to doing their own research. All right, so that is it for me today, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and let me know in the comments what your favorite charity is, or what books you have recently unhauled. And if you don't want to do that, leave an emoji for me in the comments, like maybe the world emoji or a food emoji, just to let me know that you were here. And thank you for watching. Stars shining bright above me. Night breezes seem to whisper sycamore tree. Dream a little dreamer. Hello to my kings, queens, and in-betweens. I'm Valerie, and I forgot my mic. Been running about making Wolf Willow authors be so many books. She just needed to end the series. Maybe